Here we are, end of October, for another West Hartford real estate market update. I love these videos because sometimes the month goes by so fast and you're in transactions and working with clients. By the end of the month, there are some pretty significant changes that can come into play. So it's always good to reevaluate, check in with the numbers, make sure we're not missing anything. If you have questions on any of these topics that we're going to talk about, numbers we analyze, don't be shy. We get calls, texts, emails all the time from people who watch these videos. There's no question too big or small. So with that being said, to be efficient with your time, I want to make sure we dive right in and take a look at these key metrics that we look at from month to month to see if we can determine patterns. Now, some of the stuff is right on cue, but others have adjusted, and it's good for us to be aware of. So first one I want to dive into, as always, is active inventory. Now, if you remember from a few past videos, I said traditionally speaking, the inventory will really start to dip this time of year. So we're still on that trend. Right now, there are 40 single-family homes active on the market in town, okay? Last month, there was 41, so not a big change there. The month before that was 46. So we are starting to creep downwards. As I said last month, this trend it would surprise me if this trend doesn't continue as we hit November and December. So this has two meanings, this number. For a seller, the competition really starts to dwindle. From a tactical standpoint, this can be an advantage for you. If there's a buyer, there's less to choose from, right? You're going to get more options in the springtime. So keep that in mind as well. If you're not seeing what you like, you can be a little bit patient knowing more will come on. So understanding that, whether you're on the sell side or buy side, can help you make a strategic decision that is best for your family, depending on your time and goals, etc. Next thing I always like to look at is closed sales. Now, this one is interesting. So last month, there were 41 homes that had closed in that prior 30-day cycle. That was down. That was down significantly. The month prior was 55. So we hit a huge dip in sales. And in our last video, one of the things I said is, we're going to monitor this closely, because if this is a trend, this can really have meaning, right? And have impact in the coming months. I did predict that it would bounce back, as after Labor Day, we traditionally see sales start to come up. And sure enough, we have had 64 homes that have closed over the past 30 days. So we saw that number not only bounce back up in terms of buyer activity, but we saw it even eclipse the months prior. So the buyer activity is still strong. The inventory is low. That creates this good seller's market. At the same time, our next couple of metrics do throw a little wrench in that. So median sales price. Now, if you've been watching my videos, a lot of this year we've been between 560 and 610 for median sales price, kind of floated between there. We came in at 530 over the past 30 days. So this was a much lower median sales price. Now, what does this tell me? It doesn't necessarily mean prices came down. What it does tell me is there is more activity in that mid-range than in the high end. We're starting to see less high-end sales, and that is affecting the median sale price number. So that is something to continue to monitor. There may be some correlation with that slow month we saw last month, the month prior, that's trickled in to the past 30-day numbers. My guess is that number will bounce back up as well as we get more of these pendings that have come together since Labor Day, and they start to weed themselves out. But again, that's going to be one close to watch, because I always look for statistical anomalies, so to speak. Like what is different from the pattern that we've been seeing, and this is certainly a number that we want to keep our eye on. Now, if this number stays true, what it means, that mid-range property is still going to be very competitive, but there may be some opportunities to negotiate in the higher end, right? So from a tactical standpoint, that's something to be good to be aware of. All right, next is list to sales price ratio. This is kind of no surprise. We dipped to 103%. So we're still selling over asking price on average, or at the median number there. But it was 108 the month prior, so it's come down about 5% in terms of that list to sales price ratio. So although it's still strong, we saw a big difference there. But that's no surprise since we just talked about that sales price number coming down as well. You would expect the list to sell price ratio to come down also. So those two numbers do really match up. It's going to be my prediction based on the number of sales in there in the past 30 days that's going to weed itself out in the next couple months. Still very much a seller's market out there. As I mentioned last video, even though the prices are good, something to be aware of if you're a seller. Obviously this is situational, but we're seeing buyers negotiate more. They're not just throwing in these big numbers and waiving inspections and letting things go on. The inspection's starting to matter. Buyers are backing out on inspections. We're seeing deals falling apart at a much higher rate as buyers start to be a little pickier with what's out there. So it's something we'll continue to monitor. If you have any questions, more specifically on what your house might be worth based on these current market conditions and based on your spot in the market in terms of price point and area, I'm always happy to talk. No obligation, of course. Just want to answer your questions and point you in the right direction. And if you're a buyer and you want to talk a little strategy on where or not the opportunities may be, again, my team and I, we're always happy to help. Use this information either way. Don't go in blind. The numbers don't lie. They always paint a picture, and that's why we want to be able to sit down and take a look at these each month. Hope this helps.